If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who might you ask? I am the Wiz. I'm here today with...
Zero.
How you doing this week?
Doing all right. Not looking forward to jury duty next week, so I get to sit and waste my time, either figure out how to get out of it, or basically be told after a couple hours, hey, we've already chose all the jurors we want. Go the fuck home.
All right, Zero. So we are here to review the 2015 action crime drama Sicario, starring Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Jeffrey Donovan, John Barenthal, Daniel Kaluuya, and Benicio del Toro, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Zero, let's just get right into the plot. After rising through the ranks of a male-dominated profession, idealistic FBI agent Kate Macer, played by Emily Blunt, receives a top assignment. Recruited by mysterious government official Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin, Kate joins the task force for the escalating war on drugs. Led by an intense and shadowy Alejandro, played by Benicio del Toro, the team travels back and forth across the U.S.-Mexican border, using one cartel boss to flush out a bigger one. Alright, Zero, so I've chosen this movie because I was particularly curious as to what your thoughts. So go ahead, what are your thoughts on the movie?
I love the setup in the beginning because it starts the movie off with a lot of mystery and intrigue, especially when Kate ends up being recruited for this special assignment, and they're extremely evasive details. You're just like, hey, you've been wanting to make a big drug bust for a good while, so, if you join this super secret task force, you're going to get your chance to make that big bust. You should join because it's going to be great for your career motivations and everything, so yeah, you should totally join up. As you go through the movie progressively, things start to get more and more morally murkier. I thought just sort of this descent into murkiness was interesting because it put an element of drama into the movie. Usually, with most action movies, I'm just so used to just turning my brain off and just going, it's an action movie, whatever. You don't really need your brain to process much of what's going on in an action movie, but this one provides a good balance between drama and action. The way that things sort of come to a head by the end of the movie, I thought was just absolutely fantastic.
I think the movie is a very well done story about being a pawn in an elaborate chessboard, and it's really interesting because you really feel the confusion and the frustration of the main character in this movie, because she's led to it being one thing, but then it's not told specific details. And it's to the end where you start to realize what happens, or when the character finds out what happens, that you're still not sure if you know everything. It's really interesting feeling that you have throughout the entire film. The moral murkiness that you're talking about in this movie is the character that I think represents that moral murkiness is Josh Brolin's character, who is Matt in this. Or you can also say Benicio del Toro's as well. You find out the reason why he's doing it later on down the road. But with Matt, you can tell that he's, I guess what they call a spook, who is doing all these things and is causing all this chaos in an extra legal matter. He is so smarmy and charming in this movie. He's just so funny in this. Like, I know I'm all doing all this terrible stuff, but I don't give a shit, and I'm going to get away with it too, and you know it. So I kind of like Josh Brolin in this movie. I think all the performances in this movie are very good, but I want to point out Blunt, Brolin, and Del Toro. So Brolin, I've already said. Blunt is actually really good in this movie. The other one is Del Toro. Del Toro, I think, is the best performance of the film. And he's both mysterious, but then you also root for him at the end for reasons we won't get into.
Emily Blunt's performance as Kate, I thought was really interesting because in the beginning, she starts off so idealistic and completely naive to the situation. And then by the end, she's just completely shaken by all the things that she learns, because it's just one of those situations that her world has been completely just turned upside down by all the revelations that she's found herself in throughout the events of the movie and everything. Kind of how shaken she is by the end of it just kind of sells her performance so well, because it just kind of really gives you the imagery of a person who was so idealistic, who had like a very, very solid foundation of right and wrong being just a very black and white affair, having that misconception being completely just tossed around and everything. So I thought her performance just overall in the movie was fantastic. And Benicio del Toro, his performance was very dynamic, because in the beginning he's just very mysterious. He just kind of joins up as, I believe they kind of mentioned that he's a former Mexican prosecutor who is working with U.S. authorities and everything. He doesn't do much in the beginning, and then once you get to the end, he suddenly ramps up and then you find out there's much more to him than meets the eye.
I agree with you with Del Toro. His is the most dynamic. His is the one that changes throughout the movie. But I think that what changes is not that he changes his character development. It's just the layers of him peel gradually as the film goes on. And that's what makes his character really interesting. It's not that he has changed. It's just that your perception of him has changed. So we got to talk about the action in this movie. When this movie is talked about in some film circles, it's the action sequences that really get talked about, and namely the beginning action sequence. But I think the ending one as well is very well executed. I think the interesting thing about this movie is that they bookend the action sequences. So you have the beginning action sequence, which is the one in the border, and then there is the final one, which I will not spoil. And I think they're just both really well done, and they're really good bookends for the drama in the middle.
The action I thought was pretty good, especially because just when things happen, they happen in a hurry.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you, as a person who's viewing the movie, and the movie seems to definitely focus on the lens of Kate and everything. It definitely kind of feels disorienting, which I felt was a good intentional design, especially like in the border stop scene where things get completely fucked in a hurry. It felt really disorienting. She ends up being completely confused by it. And I was just like, wow, holy cow. This kind of provides sort of like a very interesting, murky backdrop to just things getting morally murkier as we go on and everything in some cases. One of the scenes towards the end where just the mission seems to be straightforward in Kate's mind, just gets completely turned topsy-turvy on her, towards her finding out just what is actually going on. It's just kind of fantastic to see the action scenes and everything. So in my mind, I thought that the action was great, but in some cases it kind of further accentuates sort of the moral confusion.
All right, Zero, so we don't have any research, but let's get into the footnotes. So Zero, you have something for footnotes. Go ahead.
So for footnotes, what was interesting was apparently, I believe it was the mayor of Juarez, right before the film release, ended up basically telling citizens to boycott the movie because he had felt that the movie was essentially slandering the city of Juarez. The point that he made was that all the cartel violence that was depicted in the film was technically accurate until about 2010, and that was right about the time that they started to make steps to finding peace for the town and sort of really trying to crack down on the drug cartels and the gang violence and stuff like that. But interestingly enough, Villeneuve had said that he had conceived of the film during the worst of the violence in Juarez in 2010.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a common thing as well when it comes to making movies out of like real life instances or situations like that, is it takes a while for the film to actually get going, and by that point in time, the violence or the issues might be gone. The film doesn't necessarily say when it is happening. I get why the mayor would be like, yo, this is not cool, this is not what we are anymore, but on the other hand, yeah, I can understand why the mayor of Juarez would be upset by that. All right, Zero, so that is the end of the review. Let's get into our thoughts of whether we recommend the film or not. So, Zero, do you recommend Sicario?
Yes, I do recommend it because just the whole theme of moral murkiness reminds me of movies like Apocalypse Now by the legendary Francis Ford Coppola. Mostly because just you have a main character who starts off idealistic, but then by the end sort of questions their involvement on such an operation, if it was even the right thing to do. In my mind, that sort of mental quandary makes for fantastic drama. And then, of course, the action scenes are pretty good, and also they're a bit frenetic as well, too. And I guess this is where I should make the disclaimer that if you have an issue with violence, then this may not be a great movie for you. So just kind of a fair warning.
I would say the beginning part is probably the most brutal out of this movie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but I also recommend Sicario. I think it is a very good movie. I have really no issues with the film whatsoever. I think the action is very good. I think the drama is great in the middle, and I like the performances of Del Toro, Blunt, and Brolin in this movie. I guess the only thing I have to say is I wonder what the sequel is going to be like. Overall, Zero, do you recommend Sicario?
I do.
And I also recommend Sicario. Check it out and rent it wherever you get your streaming service. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, Zero, so that's the end of this review. On Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, directed by Nicholas Meyer. Tuesday, I'll be reviewing The Corpse Bride, directed by Tim Burton and Mike Johnson. Thursday, Zero, what are we reviewing?
1974's Young Frankenstein.
That's right, Young Frankenstein, directed by Mel Brooks. I have a confession to make. I have not seen this movie, have you?
No.
Oh my God.
I know I've gotten a lot of shit from some of my friends about not seeing it. They're just like, oh my God, how could you? And I'm just like, well, there's never been a real hard desire for me to, make my way out just to go watch this movie.
It's like, I am actually very surprised I have never seen this movie, because I am very much a film guy, and I do like Mel Brooks, and it's just one of those films where I have yet to see this movie. Like, I've seen Men in Tights, I've seen Dracula Dead and Loving It, good lord, I've seen The Producers, and they're great movies and all, but I have yet to see this, and I've heard that this is one of his best. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing this. All right, so Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, directed by Nicholas Meyer. Tuesday, The Corpse Bride, directed by Tim Burton and Mike Johnson. And Thursday, Young Frankenstein, directed by Mel Brooks, with Zero. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you guys next time. Bye.